Okay, thanks, Terry. This is Braden Slazak speaking, and as Terry mentioned, Jeff Knotts will also be presenting along with me. So today we're going to discuss data migration, some of the pitfalls, the best practices approach to data migration that uses a methodology along with SAP data services to reduce risk and save time and money. And for those of you that are not familiar with Utopia, we're a global consulting company focusing on data quality, data management, and data governance. A fair amount of the work that we do is in support of data migrations, clients migrating from a variety of legacy sources, often into SAP. And so having done data quality and data migration work for over 10 years for hundreds of clients, we're seeing a shift in how clients view their data and the effort and the attention that the data migration is given. And still today, data issues are the major cause for SAP system delays and failures. And for those of you that have been through some SAP system implementations, you've probably experienced that firsthand. And so what we're hoping for you to gain out of today's discussion is get an outline of the data migration methodology and best practices, how to leverage SAP data services for the project go live, and not only to go live and getting through that go live, but also beyond, and how to continue to use it and leverage it moving forward, and how to avoid common costly pitfalls and ensure that your business is ready for a successful data migration. What we typically find is that data issues are identified late in the project and cause time overruns, cost overruns, and significant project issues. And this slide represents a study that was done by SAP's user group called ASUG. Of the companies that were surveyed, 93% experienced significant data issues, and most of them were discovered late in the process when it tends to have the largest impact on project timelines, and frankly, it's more difficult to remedy at that point. And even if your data migration team represents, let's say, 10 to 15% of your overall project team, which is kind of the general rule of thumb, a delay in the data migration impacts the entire team, the timelines, and the subsequent costs. So what is the recommended data migration approach? It's all about good, clean, high-quality data to enable systems to run as they intended and to produce reliable reports and analytics. Certainly, if you go live with a system where the data isn't reliable, isn't clean, the adoption of the system suffers greatly. So this is achieved by a methodology that's proven to reduce risk, using pre-configured templates with standardized integration points for SAP ECC to accelerate deployment, and then using SAP Data Services, which has native integration to SAP for data integration, data quality, governance, visualization, and reporting. And we're going to get into that in more detail. So we align the data migration approach with SAP's 5-step ASAP methodology and best practices so that the data migration portion of the project is in lockstep with the overall project management and direction. So you see there on the screen how those data migration activities line there. And the idea is how to get from legacy systems, possibly multiple and quite likely with poor data, into ECC or any other SAP application like CRM, SRM, BI, and so on. And how do you do it with clean and actionable data so that you get the performance and the reporting that you were looking for? So to get there involves a chain of events from analyzing existing data to get an idea of the scope of the cleansing and transformation process, to cleansing the data, to validating it and reconciling before final data load into the system. And this is done within the framework of SAP's data migration methodology, tools, and best practices. One thing we often tell clients as they're looking at this is moving the data is easy. Moving the right data into the right format, cleansed and SAP business ready, is hard. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So let's walk through the approach using SAP Data Services in more detail. And we'll start with the target environment being SAP. And we can bring data from virtually any source, SAP, non-SAP, flat files, other applications, and you can see there on the left that that's represented there. And we use data services to start. Using data services, we start by extracting the data to the staging area, which is represented by the light blue box. And within that staging area, we do the cleansing, parsing, matching, and do address corrections. And I put together a separate slide, and I'll get into that a little bit more, that portion of the process, a little bit more detail, but that's all around managing the data quality with that. So then we validate against business rules that were created to mirror your business, as well as against SAP configuration data that gets automatically extracted. And this is a big benefit of this approach, is actually pulling that configuration out of SAP and doing the testing prior to the go live, so that you've done that iteration before you move to go live. So you know how the data will react when it goes to load. A big advantage here, and something that can't be understated. So then we do the load using pre-built load routines, BAPI, ALE, or LSMW, or IDOCS files loaded into SAP. And then the reconciliation can be done automatically as an audit against what you wanted to move versus what's in the target. So whatever is loaded into SAP is reconciled against the original data, and any drop records, misfits are called out for action by data stewards. So there's a full accountability of the data from the legacy environment to the target environment. No data can be dropped out or not reported, so you're assured 100% accurate migration. Dashboards and reporting are provided, and it gives you performance analysis. The performance analysis lets you monitor the work with metrics to track percentage quality and progress over time against project milestones, so that you can make sure that you're meeting those targets as you move forward. And then all of this provides complete transparency and accountability during the migration process, so you have a good visibility into where you are with that migration process. And again, as I talked earlier about some of the issues that clients have had with data migration, a lot of them don't recognize it until late in the process. So this certainly gives you that visibility. Okay. And some of the benefits is this is a single tool, single staging area to do the work. You don't have to use multiple Excels. It's one system to learn. It de-risks the process. It keeps the project team on time and on budget. And it gives absolute certainty about the quality of the data going into the system during the batch processes. So again, as I mentioned before, you know how the data is going to react before you put it in the system. And early and continuous population of ECC with cleansed and corrected data. Then once you've done the migration, you can close out old transactions and archive data and decommission systems. And then going forward, you can set up real-time data governance of the new data coming in. And so that real-time data governance, which Jeff is going to talk about and demo later, is taking those same rules that you developed for the migration and borrowing those so that then you can use the data governance to keep your data clean going forward. So let's talk about, kind of summarize the 10 best practices for data migration. But first, determine the purpose of your data. So analyze the information environment, identifying where and how the data will be leveraged, not just today, but in the future. And determine how the data will be used differently tomorrow. For example, in analytics, it might need to be formatted differently. Secondly, take an as-is assessment before moving the data. Data is dynamic, and it's changing all the time. And it's tied directly to business processes and users. So establish data standards and define business rules for migration and ongoing data use with owners and subject matter experts. The third is account for data quality, especially in legacy systems. Migrating involves more than just moving the data, but perform a thorough quality assessment to ensure standardization that supports the new uses and users today and tomorrow. So this should include deduplication, removal of other non-relevant files, and possibly master data management type process. Fourth is validate and redefine business rules. So data must comply and be compatible with your current business and validation rules. So define those rules for a one-time data conversion and migration, and while designing them for adaptability to future regulatory and policy requirements. Fifth is ensure that governance rules are established early and who is responsible for the data. So after determining who owns and has the final say over information, establish strategic and operational data stewards aligned to the C-level sponsors for continuing guidance on scope, direction, and support. Six is to take responsibility for your data migration. So your company, not only the system integrator, must live with the results of the data migration. So based on the aptitude and attitude, find the right people to manage the process and technology correctly. And I can't emphasize that point enough, because we really encourage our clients, as they're stepping through this process, to be involved so that they can be more self-supportive as they go live on the system. Additionally, don't rely 100% on the tool. Tools are just that. Tailor fields and business rules to your company needs with internal experts leveraging tools so that you obtain the right information to complete the data migration. And also validate throughout the process. And that's one of the things when we talked about pulling that configuration out of SAP. Don't wait until the migration is completed to look for problems. Fixing the mistakes after the fact is extremely expensive. So just be carefully choose testing and evaluation personnel based on critical participant and data consumer needs. Engage the business. The migration takes place nearest completion. Be mindful of which users, customers, and business partners have to live with the results, and make sure you work with them around the validation. And choose carefully and accurately who makes the final decision on whether the migration is good to go forward. And then finally, number 10, measure the impact. So take your time in determining who should be involved in testing, evaluation, and final sign-off of the data migration. And be aware of the data's ultimate consumer. So after go live, focus on that operational business process to maintain relevant and high-quality data. And this is just a summary of our data cleansing process that is embedded in our overall data migration process. So I've included this in here, to show the additional detail of that, where it shows that we extract the input data, do the profiling analysis, and the profiling analysis would show the amount of duplicates, level of standardization, and things like how the data is buried. Then we map the data, and we create a taxonomy and understanding the noun modifiers, because it gives us the ability to identify the data and parse it into different taxonomies. And once we do the standardization, then we do the deduplication. And then we enrich the data, so we add perhaps pockets of information that might be missing from the data to make sure it's as full as it can. And then we classify it for UN, SBC, ISO, or other standards, and translate it if needed. And that's translation is less frequent, is more the exception than the rule. And then passed on to process to migrate into the system. So that's just kind of a snapshot of that piece. And this is a process that we often simulate. We have a labs environment that we offer to our clients so that they can simulate this process with their data. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to do the demonstration on real-time data governance, and then following that, we're going to open up the floor for questions. So just give me a second, and I'll move the presentation over to Jeff. Okay, Jeff, you should have the presentation. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, 1 second. I'm trying to, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can, Jeff. Thanks.
Great. So I'm going to start out by just briefly opening up data services and show you what data services is and what it looks like. And then I'm going to drill into an actual demonstration where we're calling out to data services from the SAP user interface while entering in a transaction type of MM01 for an MRO material. And what it's going to do is I enter in that material, it's actually going to call out, and it's going to process some jobs. Here is one of these jobs. So the first time I click on the Save button, I'll walk you through this. It's going to call back to this actual job that is exposed as a real-time web service. Now, the logic in this job comes from the process that occurred during the data migration. So the legacy data came from many different systems. It had a materials classification that needed to happen. It ran through the process. It parsed them. It figured out what the nouns were, the validation of that, the standardization and parsing. All that happened in a batch fashion, and now that's reused and published as a real-time, so as people are entering data. A statistic that you'll hear from the Data Warehousing Institute is that 75% of all data entry issues are entered in from an employee. So if you put something in place in front of them to catch their attention when they put something in that doesn't make sense, you have the ability to capture that and possibly fix it up front. And I'll show you an example of this. So I'm going to click on this, and this is the transaction type of MM01. I'm going to go up here into short description, and I'm going to enter, and you can see I've done this demo for a few times. I'm going to enter in the same text here, and I'm going to go ahead and click, just put the short description, and I'm going to say Save. And I ask it to go and save this into the system. And you can see at the bottom down here, it actually called out to the SAP configuration, and the SAP configuration told me that the base unit of measure needs to be filled out. So I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to do Save again and see what it does. Well, this time I had enough basic information in here, and what it did is I clicked on that. After it passed the configuration rules that are built into the SAP system, it called out to that web service. It took that material description, which you find on the left, and it ran it through some rules and data services. These rules, again, were the ones that were created during the data migration process, and what it does is it tells them that the noun is a valve. It's got the modifiers, it's the ball, it's the 2-inch. You can see that it took the 2 and the quote marks, and it reformatted that to IN for inches. So it's standardizing, it's reformatting, and it's different in a different order, and we're placing it back out. What it's really doing, though, it's breaking those pieces apart into their atomic elements. And now when I click and I say accept the validated material, it's going to go back and run another process over here in data services. And that process is actually going to look into ECC, and it's going to say, are there other materials in here that look like the one I'm about to enter? So it's going to do some deduplication. So I clicked on that. It's taking this data and it's looking into the system. And the system says, sure enough, you know what? You already have 4 things in your system that look pretty much exactly like that. Do you want to put that in there? So at this point, I would tell it to abort, and I would go back and I would bring it back up and modify one of the existing ones. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to create to show you that another thing that we can do is there are rules that can be specific to your organization that can be added within data services that you identified during your governance process when you were doing the data migration. Those rules can be exposed as well as web services, and you can interact with them. These rules don't necessarily have to be rules that would be in the configuration. This is a place to put specific rules that require multi-level or fuzzy logic along with them, and then you get the ability to actually call out to them. So that's the end of my demo. And I think, Terry, you want me to put it back to the slide. Please, can you please take control and put it back to Braden's slide for me? And with that, we will open it up to questions.
Okay, so you can enter any questions that you have on the question pane located on the right-hand side of your window. We'll answer as many questions as we can. while being aware of your time. Forgive me, I'm having a slight technical difficulty.
I made a presenter. Braden, can you put the slides back up, please?
Thank you. So we do have a couple questions that came in during the presentation. The first of which, and I know you covered this a little bit, but maybe the why would be good. What data migration tool do you typically recommend to clients and why?
Well, it's a good question. Any of the ETL tools out there, even down to hand scripting, can get the job done. Our preferred tool is SAP's data services, and the reason for that is because it's an SAP tool, and there's certainly an integration level there that is not present with any other tool in the marketplace. And that sort of integration is going to accelerate and de-risk your data migration. It's going to accelerate it because the pre-built templates and best practices that are published by SAP and by Utopia as well provide you a known target system, a known set of business and configuration rules you can test against during an iterative process. So when you go live, the data actually loads the first time because you've already iterated through the rules. So that level of integration will speed your migration, take the risk away, and make it much more successful, and that's why it's our favorite tool.
Okay, I have another question for you. How can you decrease the time it typically takes to complete a data migration project?
Well, I just explained that partially. With using the accelerators and templates, it is going to speed the process up. By utilizing and engaging with a company such as Utopia that's done hundreds of these, and it has multiple tens of these in flight at any given time, by bringing trusted advisors in to help you, to teach you about the process, to tell you what you need to be looking for well before the process starts, so that once the process does start, everything is aligned and everything is measurable, and you can go through the process in an orderly fashion. And bringing that time down and de-risking it by using the accelerators and templates.
Okay, and the last question. How can you best deal with bad data in a legacy system?
It's the age-old question. We can clean up the data going to the new system, but what do we do with the old one? Unfortunately, the answer comes down to who owns that and what are you allowed to do. The data that's cleansed during a migration process can certainly be fed back into the loop to the original legacy system, as long as that system is allowed to take that data in. There's multiple ways of dealing with situations like this. It could be fed back as reports, an awareness, a number of things. But the business process is going to be dictated by the rules within each organization. This is something that we will come in and help you, teach you about with our enterprise data lifecycle management process. We'll teach you about the governance process and how best to deal with data throughout the whole lifecycle, not just your migration.
Jeff, we did have one more question come in. How can you ensure incremental data migration with zero downtime?
The best way is to be prepared and understand where you're going and how you're getting there. When using things like these templates allow you to iterate through that process and make sure you're checking your defects and you're against your business rules before you go live. You'll never have zero downtime. There's got to be some time you switch from one system to another. That downtime could be a second, it could be a day, it could be a week, depending on how you plan. The best way is to make sure you iterate through the rules, have the data correct before you go live, and then the data will be fit for purpose, and as soon as you come up and live, it's useful and actionable.
Okay, and with everybody's calendars and times in mind, we'll make this the last question of the webinar. If your organization uses other systems in addition to or in place of SAP, how does data services check for existing similar materials in these other systems?
Well, data services is nothing more or nothing less than a world-class ETL tool, actually. It was in the market as a heterogeneous ETL tool before SAP acquired it. So it's been used in the data warehousing industry for years, connecting to heterogeneous data sources from XML to flat files to Excel spreadsheets to every relational database that's out there. So going against these different systems is no different than going against the SAP system. The only benefit, or the big benefit of having data services with an SAP is the added integration you have with that, since they're the same company. It has all of the basic drivers and the ability to read and write data to every other type of data system as any other tool in the marketplace.